The Joe Rogan Experience.
Where was the situation that was happening during the Obama administration, where they were trying to put a pipeline through, and they were hosing people down, and
Right.
it was on private land, and they were going through private land, and people were protesting it, but they were forcing it through anyway? Where was that?
That was Standing Rock up
Right.
in North Dakota, and that's still going on today. In fact, I think this week
Is that
there's
native
a
land?
hearing. The Fort Laramie Treaty, I think, is affected by that. So there are some land right issues there, but we're talking about burials in sacred areas, not to mention water quality, and the tribes. Obama stopped it, but as soon as Trump got into office, he pushed it forward. And did not consult with tribes, and it's been a fight ever since. Same thing happened
But
with
Obama was going through it initially, and then
Yes,
they
yes.
put a stop to it right before he left office.
right.
Right. I mean, I'm so cynical. I wonder how much of that is horseshit. How much of that is, we'll put a stop to it. Just let, it's going through it. Don't worry, boys.
Well, the Obama administration was probably one of the more favorable administrations to Indian country. There were many presidents that had never even gone to a reservation, like the majority of presidents.
And he did.
Actually, he was adopted into the Crow Nation, I think. So he's an adopted tribal member.
That's pretty cool. Do you think he's visited since then?
I don't know,
Probably too
but
busy.
that administration really did a lot of work in Indian country that had never been done before, and they actually were looking to tribes and building a government-to-government relationship that no one had ever really done as well. Every year they would hold a big tribal consultation in D.C. where tribal leaders would come from everywhere and consult with Obama and his administration. It was really unprecedented, and it was a really happy time. And as soon as Trump got into office, the doors closed. The doors closed. So even though he appointed Assistant Secretary for Indian Affairs, Tara Sweeney, who's Alaska Native, that administration and the Department of Interior and under the president has just been so closed. It's been hard to get anything done or to get heard or even actually have that government-to-government relationship anymore. We've been left out of a lot of the decision-making process that's going on all over Indian country.
Well, it's a very good thing to hear about Obama that he did that. It's sad to hear that the Trump administration has abandoned that, but it's nice to hear that someone was making an attempt to do that. So what I'm getting is that there really is no long-term solution. There's no solution. You're saying that the tribes kind of have to deal with.
I think there's a lot of solutions and a lot of moving parts, and I think Indian nations need to determine for themselves how best to handle the problems within their communities, but outward-facing, to have a strong government-to-government relationship that takes into account, not just takes into account, but actually requires the prior and informed consent of those tribal nations before affecting their rights or at least some diplomacy or negotiation with varying interests before decisions are made. I think that's the heart of what needs to happen outward facing. And also we need to take a new look at our curriculum in schools. We really need to most of our all of our curriculum in public schools is about looking at Native American pre-1900. So, and not carrying that into today and who contemporary Native American tribes are and what they're doing to help their people. And what's so wonderful about Indian country today is that though there have There are some places that are still, there are some anti-Indian hate groups out there that fight tooth and nail against anything a tribe in their area tries to do to develop economically. There are other communities where tribes have been able to bring in economic development, whether that's through gaming or otherwise. And by the way, Indian gaming is like no other type of corporate gaming. And I think a lot of people don't understand this. So if you're a gambler, go to Indian casinos because that money goes towards Indian nation governance. It's not like a private business. It is legislated that money from those casinos go back into Indian nation governance and are used for jobs and employment and social services. And all of that relieves the state and other government agencies from having that responsibility.
So are those the success stories of modern
Those
Indian
are the
life?
success stories.
Yeah.
I mean, if you look at – so Oklahoma, the state of Oklahoma is fighting Indian nations in Oklahoma about gaming, trying to get more money out of gaming. But that Oklahoma tribes have brought in tons of money. 100,000 jobs have been created in casino and other economic development.
So who's fighting it and why?
The governor is fighting it. Governor Stitt, I think, is his name. And he's trying to renegotiate gaming compacts in order to bring more money into the state. So essentially trying to tax that for state purposes.
Even though it's on native land.
Right.
Interesting. So it's almost in a way another attempt at violating a treaty.
Absolutely.
So denying the sovereign nation.
Right. Well, in the Indian Gaming Regulatory Act, which was passed, there's so much federal legislation. It's insane. Federal Indian law, I mean, it has its own 25 USC, this huge code of stuff, man. But the Indian Gaming Regulatory Act was passed because Indians were finding success doing gaming and states were getting pissed off because they were doing it without any interference, which is their inherent sovereignty to do so.
That's hilarious.
So this act came, which was kind of a compromise where tribes can do what's called Class 2 gaming, which is based on bingo. And there's electronic bingo games that are kind of like slot machines. So tribes can do Class 2 gaming without any interference with the state. But if they do Class 3 gaming, that's card games and other types, then the state they have to work with the state in order to develop some kind of compact and revenue sharing for Class 3 gaming. So the federal government, again, allowed state to interfere with that inherent tribal sovereignty to regulate their own economic development.
Yeah, that's an issue with all of these Native American casinos, isn't it? They don't get the full Vegas treatment. They can't have all the games that Vegas can have.
They can. That's the Class 3 gaming.
But they have to do it through the state versus through their sovereign government. It's so strange, right? It's like under one hand, they get no help at all. And then when something comes along that allows them to economically thrive, then the government's like, hold on. Where's our piece?
So why do you think this is? So
because they can.
And so much legislation looks at tribes as if they're inferior.
Yes.
So back again to those watershed cases of Justice Marshall.
Yeah.
They're inferior. Even being able to assert jurisdiction over non-Indians who come into our territory and do something wrong. We can't.
Right.
We
so
can't.
if someone breaks the law in a Native American reservation, they're under the federal government's guidelines or the state government's laws.
The tribe does not have criminal jurisdiction over non-Indians.
So if someone comes in and robs a casino, then the state has to take care of it.
Right. The state or the federal government, depending on what type of crime.
Ideally, would it be that the Native Americans would take care of it?
Yeah. Why
Wouldn't
not?
it be-